Well, I also spoke a bit earlier to the former Conservative Health Secretary and current head of the NHS Confederation, Stephen Dorrell, and asked him what he made of the announcement.
First of all, I think it's good news for the health service and good news for British citizens that the government is committing additional resources to ensure that the NHS is better funded and has the opportunity to improve its services. So I think that's clear good news. What I think is also important to recognise, however, is that within the NHS Confederation we did what I think has been acknowledged as the most serious piece of work supported by the IFS and the Health Foundation. The most serious piece of work for 15 years, looking at what the health service actually needs if we're going to deliver world-class health care. And the figure was 4% for the health service and, very importantly, 4% for social care as well. So this is a welcome announcement, but in truth it's only a partial announcement if what we want to deliver is world-class health care.
On those figures, it falls well short. It's only 3.4%, and that's for the NHS only.
Well, and it's only in truth for part of the health service. It doesn't, for example, cover public health. It doesn't cover training. So I think in truth, in round numbers, it's 3% against a requirement for 4% for the health service and nothing at the moment for social care. And the danger is that we over-focus on part of the health service budget, but we lose sight of the important fact that it's public services as a whole, including housing, including social care, including the range of local public services. That's what deliver healthy outcomes for citizens, not just the health service.
Which is interesting because obviously Jeremy Hunt's position, his title was changed not that long ago, away from Secretary of State for Health to Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, which makes it, I suppose, even more disappointing that social care doesn't get a mention here.
Yes, I wouldn't use the word disappointing. I think it's this is a welcome announcement, but it's a partial announcement. That's, I think, the government itself has said that. The government has said that there will be more announcements to follow in the budget in the autumn. Well, that is also welcome, but what we need to understand is that at a time when modern techniques, health techniques are developing, it's medicines, but it's also about the way people are cared for in the community. It's about what goes on in the GP surgery as well as about the drugs. And at the time when all of that is developing, and we know we've got a rising elderly population, and in particular a rising population of people over the age of 85, we do owe it to those people to look seriously at what is required. Growing health budget is part of the answer, but it's not the whole answer.
Speaking of which, when we talk about the whole answer, people are trying to work out how this will be funded and are being told in no uncertain terms we'll need to wait until the budget to find that out. This expression that Theresa May used about a Brexit dividend, I mean, you tweeted yourself in February that Brexit was bad news for the NHS.
I think the chair of the Health Select Committee has described it as tosh, and I agree with her. And more seriously, the IFS has made it clear that that actually public revenues, the IFS, actually the government itself says that its revenues will fall as a result of Brexit. So there's no bigger supporter of Brexit than the Daily Telegraph. The Daily Telegraph is leading this morning on the proposition that this will be paid for by stealth taxes. Stealth taxes is simply how you describe tax increases that you don't approve of.
So what is Theresa May's motivation then for this creative semantic use of Brexit dividend?
I think, to be honest, it's a bit of virtue signalling to part of the Brexit community. And in a sense, I think it's a pity, because I think what the government needs to do is to focus on what is required to deliver high-quality public services to British citizens. And the fact is that as our population gets older, as there is more opportunities to deliver better services to those people, those services cost money. And the only way the government can pay for services is through tax revenues.
Does it say something about us as a society that you can't say we're going to give more money to the NHS, we're going to raise taxes to pay for that, that even then, the government feel they have to sweeten the medicine, that people will take it?
Well, I think actually when you look at public opinion as reported by pollsters and by opinion surveys and just talking to people, actually people are much, much more grown up on this subject than the politicians. They know perfectly well that public services cost money. Doctors and nurses expect to be paid, and quite rightly so. And so if the services cost money and people want them, it isn't a surprise to them if the government then turns round and says that we need tax revenues to pay for them.
You've had yourself that experience in the past of going into Number 10 and arguing for more money and higher budgets. There will undoubtedly be today people in the Home Office, in defence, in education who are looking at this sidelong and thinking, well, what does that mean for us? Less money for us, presumably.
And it was said a long time ago, to govern is to choose. You do have to make choices. Of course, we can't have everything that we want. We need proper defence services. We absolutely need education. Incidentally, education is part of the health network as well. How can you do services for children through the health service, ignoring the fact that children go to school? So it's joining up the range of public services while reflecting that there are other priorities. Governments have other priorities through the welfare pension system and through the defence system as well. But all of those things have to be brought together and choices have to be made.
It's stark, really, isn't it? So the likes of education, defence, they will miss out as a result of this.
Well, as I've said, choices have to be made. If you look at this country, again, this is work that was done by the Institute of Fiscal Studies, looking at this country's tax burden by comparison with other comparable countries in Europe and beyond. Actually, we are below average in terms of the share of our national income accounted for by taxes. Now, at a time when we all know that we choose to pay for the NHS through taxes, whereas other countries pay for it in other ways, we need to face the fact that if we want high-quality public services, health, social care, education, police, the full range of public services, as I've said, the voters, people who live in the real world, they don't have to have it explained to them that those services are paid for by taxes. They know that perfectly well.
Health is dear to you, and it was through your parliamentary career as well. But is this the right choice for the government to be making?
I absolutely think that any society is judged in part by its ability to provide properly for sick and elderly and disabled people. And that's the budget that we're talking about.
Stephen Dorrell, the former Conservative Health Secretary, current head of the NHS Confederation, paying extra tax